Hi everyone, it's Alice, and today we are going to talk about everything I read in June. This month I had high aspirations for how much I was going to read because I'm off of school and all I need to do is work. So now suddenly I feel like I have all of this free time that I don't need to spend on all of these other things. So I figured I would get to read loads, but I underestimated how much other stuff I had going on this month. I had so many social happenings, which for a poor introvert like myself, like, I had fun, but at what cost? Just kidding, although also kind of not. But it was definitely worth it. This month was just so much busier than I thought it was going to be, and I wasn't really prepared for it, which I don't know why I wasn't, because I knew that all of these things were coming up. So I don't know why I just ignored that. But I had a lot of fun, and you know how it is. Sometimes you just gotta live a little. And I had a lot of fun, but I didn't get to read as much as I thought I was going to. I did actually get through quite a few books. I just thought that I would read way more than I usually do this month, and I just had this idea in my head, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm just rambling at this point. I did actually read quite a lot this month, for me, like a normal amount, and I did read some really good books. So maybe let's just jump into talking about them, because that's why you're here. The first book that I read was Fingersmith by Sarah Waters, which is a historical fiction novel. It starts off in London in 1862, where we meet our main character, who is an orphan, and she grows up among all of these thieves, and she lives in this house, and she's being cared for by this woman who took her in as a baby. And the story sort of takes off when this man comes to the house with this proposition to basically scam this other woman out of her inheritance. And for this, he needs the main character's help. And she agrees. And the story is about what happens with that and how the main character has actually kind of been linked to this whole situation from the start. It's kind of hard to summarize this book because there's so much more going on in here, but I also feel like I don't want to give too much away because when I went into this book, I didn't know that much. I just knew that people said it was amazing and that it had some really good twists, and boy, did it. I was shocked with some of the twists and turns in this book, and I did not see any of them coming. I now totally understand why so many people liked this book, because now I do too. It was really good. It did take me a little bit of time to get into, I will say. Like, it was a little bit rough in the beginning, but when I got into it, I got super into it. I really enjoyed reading about the characters. I really like, especially the ones that are sort of morally ambiguous, which is kind of most of them. I really like reading about those kinds of characters, and I like following characters for like a long period of time where you get to know them really well and you see them go through a lot of different things. So I really enjoyed that. I also really like the setting of this. It feels very clearly Victorian, and it has this like bleak and dark kind of vibe to it. I feel like the atmosphere fits the story really well, and I felt like it really came to life in here. It's very atmospheric, and I feel like the setting adds a lot to the atmosphere and it adds a lot to the feeling of the story. I also think I got on with this so well because I feel like the book has a really good balance between characters and plot, and there were a lot of interesting themes in here. The plot also really took some directions that I wasn't, like, I did not realize where this book was going to go at all, and like the twists really are kind of crazy. They fit really well, and when you get there you're like, oh, maybe I should have seen that coming, but I didn't see it coming. And especially the first plot twist really caught me off guard, and I, after that, like, I couldn't stop reading because I was like, I need to know what the hell just happened. My only slight complaint about this is that I do think it's a little bit too long, and I think that there are parts that are a little bit repetitive, and I feel like the middle part dragged a little bit. I was still interested, but it did feel like a slightly long book. But other than that, I really, really like this one. I also actually really like the writing in here. Like, there were parts that were really beautiful, and I wanted to read them again because I just liked the way that the author wrote different parts of this. So I really enjoyed that as well. And it was just a very interesting story. It's a little different from a lot of other historical fiction books that I've read, and there's a lot going on, and it really takes you for quite a journey, and it's very interesting. It's also in parts a little bit weird, which I really liked, and I didn't really think that it was gonna be that kind of weird when I got into this, but I really liked it. This is a solid 4 out of 5 star read for me, and I would definitely recommend it. I do think that you kind of have to be into these kinds of books though if you're gonna enjoy it, and yeah, you have to be prepared for a slightly long book, but it really is very, very good. Secondly, I picked up Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. This is a contemporary horror book, and it's about this couple where one of them has returned from a deep sea mission where things went terribly wrong. And the story sort of alternates between what happened in the submarine and what's happening now with the person who came back and her sort of altered state, which is kind of strange. This is a book that I had kind of high expectations for, and I find it a little bit difficult to summarize my thoughts on this book because I read it and I really liked it, but I don't really know how to pinpoint why. And it's also a book where I read it and I was like, okay, that was good, but then after I kept thinking about it and it keeps popping up in my head, like I keep thinking about it. It's definitely a weird one, and even though it is horror, I would say that it leans more into that sort of like strange literary horror side of things. It's a story about this deep sea mission, but it's also a story about this couple and this thing that is eating away at their relationship, and it's a slow, confusing, emotional process, and I did feel like that was captured really well. I already knew that I liked this author's writing style because I've read a short story collection by her and really liked it. And again, in this one, the writing was really excellent. It's beautiful and emotional, but it's not too like overly complicated or too flowery, which, don't get me wrong, sometimes I really like flowery, complicated writing. But in this, I just feel like the writing fits the story so well, and it's kind of hard to explain, but it makes sense in my brain. There is also a certain atmosphere to this book that I really liked. It feels haunting but immersive, and it almost has like a dreamlike quality to it, but not like full on, but there are some dreamlike tendencies. And there is something almost melancholic about it that I really liked. And I just think that this book did a really good job of sort of blending together genres to make this slow burn literary horror. Like, I really like that. It is the kind of book that is a little bit ambiguous, and you're not really gonna get answers to everything, and you kind of have to be okay with that. Like, it's just one of those books. And I feel like that fits the story quite well, actually, because it leaves some of this sort of open to interpretation. And I think with the themes and how it's built up, it's actually like it works really well that we don't get answers to everything. I wouldn't say that it's confusing, but it's just, it's not like super clear on everything, and some parts are sort of left up to interpretation. I really like that though, but I do think if you're gonna be into it, you have to be into sort of like weird books. For me, this is a 4 out of 5 star read, and I really can't stop thinking about it. Like, it was beautiful, but also kind of weird and creepy. And it's the kind of book where I keep thinking, like, what does it all mean? But in a good way. Like, it's a book that you really can interpret in a lot of different ways. And yeah, I really, really liked it. And I do feel like it's a mark of a good book when you keep thinking about it the way that I'm thinking about this book. Then I picked up a short story collection because you might know I'm trying to read more of those this year, so I picked up this one. This is Love and Color by Bolu Babalola, and in this one the author retells a story from mythology and history, and these stories are from all over the world, from the magical folk tales of West Africa to the Greek myths. This is a collection that I've had for quite some time, and I remember I picked this up because I really like retellings of myths and like folk tales from around the world, and I really enjoy that in a short story format, so I figured I would like this because of that. I think I underestimated though how much I'm not interested in like specifically romance stories, which I don't know why I didn't think of that, but I just didn't. And I thought I would really like this one, but I kind of ended up not feeling or thinking that much of it. Like with most short story collections, I would say that this was a little bit of a mixed bag. I feel like that's just the way it goes with short stories though. Like in collections, you're always going to find stuff that you really like and some stuff that you don't like as much. I did really like the mythology parts, like the folk tales and like that part of it. I really enjoyed. I knew that I was going to like that. But I would say overall, most of these stories sort of bleed into each other for me, and it's not that long since I finished this, and I can't really remember any of the stories I read in here, which that may be a me problem. Like I kind of think it is because my memory is terrible, and I also just this maybe wasn't the collection for me. But yeah, I finished this like a week ago, and I can't really tell you much about it. I do always struggle a little bit with reading romance though, and I think in order for it to work for me, I need to spend a lot of time with the characters, and like it needs time and space to sort of build up, and I don't think that works so well in a short story format for me. I think that's just me though. Like if you really like romance, you would probably enjoy this a lot more than me. I will give it plus points for having an excellent cover though, but yeah, I don't think I have that much more to say about it. I don't really know what to rate it either. It's somewhere between like a 2 and 3 star read for me, but I really do think that I'm just not the right reader for it, so my bad. I think I just prefer other kinds of short stories. After that, I picked up a graphic novel. It was The Girl from the Sea by Molly Knox Ostertag, and this is like contemporary, and it has some romance to it and some like fantasy elements, but it is set in like our world. And it follows a 15-year-old girl who lives on this island, and all she dreams of is finishing high school so that she can leave the island and have this life that she wants. And she wants to just get out, start living, and she also is carrying around this secret that she likes other girls and she feels like she's going to be able to live the life that she wants if she leaves. And the story is about that and what happens when one day she almost drowns and she is saved by this mysterious magical girl. I picked this up because I just wanted something nice and sweet, and I feel like this definitely fit that. I didn't want to read anything that was too complicated, and this wasn't, but it also does have quite a lot of depth to it, which I really liked. And I really like this coming of age story having these fantasy elements like brought into it. It is a story on the shorter side, and I would say that it's pretty fast paced. Maybe a little bit too fast paced for me in some parts, but I do think pacing graphic novels is really, really difficult because you don't want like standalone graphic novels to be too long or too short, and the pacing is just very difficult to get like exactly right. For just a relatively short story though, I did really enjoy this. I feel like I really got to know the characters and I got pretty invested in them, and I did get quite invested in the romance because it is very, very sweet. I also really like the art in here. I especially like the use of color. It feels very summery and it fits this like island vibe. You do get a pretty good sense of the island, so I really enjoyed that. I also really like how the characters are drawn, especially this sea girl. Like the way that she's drawn in some parts of the, I mean it's good in the whole book, but especially in some parts. And I really like the scenes that are set in the sea, which I'm not going to show you because the best ones are towards the end and I don't want to give it away. But I really enjoyed the art, and I feel like the art fits the story really well. It does lean YA, but I still really enjoyed it. It was adorable, and I do really like coming of age stories, so I really enjoyed that as well. And it does have romance in it, and that is like a pretty big part of the story, but it is also a story about friendship and just being at a part in your life where you're young and you know that things need to change. And yeah, it's like it captures a certain part of like teenage life that I just think is really nice to read about, and the romance was very sweet. So I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5 stars, and Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It felt like a perfect book to read when it's summer. Second to last, I picked up Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. This is a memoir, and the story is about the author, and it sort of takes a look at her life through her adolescence and through her 20s. And the book is comprised of like stories from her life and some recipes and some lists and like some emails, and it's sort of a mishmash of all kinds of different things, and all of these parts have like a humorous edge to them. This is a book that I borrowed from a friend because it's one of her favorites, and I had been kind of interested in reading this anyway, so I thought I would borrow it and give it a go. And this is a book that I've heard a lot of good things about, and I understand why, because I really liked it too. I really like reading memoirs, especially from women, and there is something really interesting about reading the story of someone who has lived a life that is so different from your own. There are universal experiences in here that I feel like most people could relate to, but I really liked this because you get a sense of this person who's just so hungry for life and just wants to experience everything. And that can be a really good thing, but it can also, like, sometimes people take it a little bit too far. And I really liked that sometimes things in here just get so wild. The voice in here feels honest and raw, and it's also just funny. Like, there were parts where I really chuckled, and it feels like a very honest look at like love, heartbreak, growing up, trying to figure out who you are, and there's a lot in it that I really enjoyed reading about. And I do think that one of the reasons that I really like this book is that it focuses quite a lot on friendship, and specifically female friendship. And I think I knew that it did have something to do with like friendship as well, but I thought it would focus mostly on romantic love, and that's not the only love that we explore in here. Like, a huge part of the book is just friendship and that kind of love. And I really, really liked that, and I really appreciated it. It felt like that was the thread that like pulled this whole book together. I do think this has an interesting format to it though, because I would say most of the book is written like a traditional memoir, like we're hearing stories from her life, but then in between there are different kinds of lists and recipes and some emails and like some different kinds of things. And I don't know that I really loved that. I think there are parts where she like writes a sort of list about what she knew about love in different ages, like different parts of her life. And I did really like that. I think that was a good part of the book, and it was sort of different from these straight up stories. But the rest of it, I don't know that I really loved it. I think I just preferred the like stories where we got a little bit more into it, and yeah, I don't really know how to explain it. I wonder if other people love that. Maybe it's just me who doesn't really like that kind of format, but yeah, I much preferred like the more traditionally written parts. Overall though, I'm really glad I read this. I had like for the most part a really good time with this book. And I do think that writing funny memoirs can be like a difficult thing to do, because sort of mixing funny things with more serious things can be difficult, but I also feel like when it works really well, at least for me, because that's kind of what life is. Like, some parts are really serious and some parts are really silly. And I like that sort of mix. And I feel like, yeah, I feel like this book did a good job with that. I don't know if the humor would hit everyone, but I laughed quite a lot when I read this book. It also reminds me that I need to read more memoirs because I really enjoy them. And yeah, I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5 stars. It is a book that I think I would like to reread someday, so maybe I should get my own copy. But yeah, really enjoyed it. I think if you like memoirs and you like sort of humorous memoirs, you would enjoy this. Then lastly, I decided to pick up Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. This is a classic, and this collection contains 3 short stories from this author. We have Metamorphosis, In the Penal Colony, and The Judgment, A Story for F. But the main story is like Metamorphosis, which is one of Franz Kafka's most famous stories, and it's about this ordinary salesperson who wakes up one day to find himself transformed into this huge insect, which is obviously very inconvenient and kind of weird. Metamorphosis is a story that I've wanted to read for a while because it's just one of those stories that comes up every now and then, and I just wanted to read it so that I could understand what people were talking about. And now I've read it and I can check it off my list. And I think I knew a lot of what was going to happen in the story because I've just heard a lot about it, but it was very interesting to read for myself. It was definitely interesting and kind of disturbing. The whole story has a really odd vibe to it because it's both super absurd but also very matter of fact, and the writing has like a detached tone to it, which I thought was very interesting, and it has a claustrophobic atmosphere, and it was very interesting to read. There are also just a lot of interesting themes in this story, and I can understand why it's survived so long and why people are still interested in it, because it explores like alienation and dehumanization and like what function you serve when you can no longer like provide and help out. And I don't think I knew how like the family would come into the story though. I didn't really know that that was a part of the story, but the family of this main character still lives with this guy after he's transformed into this bug, and it's like a very interesting situation because they keep having to deal with it, and it evolves, and it's just, yeah, it's very interesting and also super sad. I don't think I really realized how sad it was gonna be when I went into this, actually. It is like super depressing, and it's a story that makes you ponder, I would say. And it's a story, I think, like one of the reasons it has survived so long is that it's a story that I think would be really interesting to discuss with other people. Now, like I mentioned, there are two other stories in here which I read, but I really got this collection because I wanted to read Metamorphosis, and that was the story I was most interested in. I didn't really care about the other two, but I'm really glad that I've read Metamorphosis now because I just feel like I understand the conversation around it better. It's not my favorite short story that I've ever read, but I thought it was very interesting. And it's a story I would like to reread in a while to see like how I feel about it then. Since this is like a collection of stories though, it is a little bit difficult to rate because I would say that Metamorphosis is like a 4 out of 5 star short story, and the other two were kind of like 3 out of 5 stars. So I guess if you put that together, it's like a 3 out of 5 star collection. But I really liked the Metamorphosis story, and I thought it was interesting to read. And yeah, it's definitely a story that I'm gonna think about a lot. That was the last book though. That was everything that I read in June. Now, I'd love to know what you all have been reading lately or what you're currently reading. I would love to hear about that. Tell me all about it in the comments. And that was kind of it for today. As always, thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon. Bye!